Today we're looking at the Fantastic Four number 10, The Return of Doctor Doom, on Fantastic FOURiday. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater, a new comic book series from IDW. The book will be in stores in October, but the final order cutoff is Monday, September 9th. Let your comics retailer know that you want a copy set aside for you. So looking at this cover, it's an idiosyncratic cover. We have Stan Lee and Jack Kirby observing their handiwork. How's this for a twist, Jack? We've got Doctor Doom as one of the Fantastic Four. And Mr. Fantastic himself is the villain. Our fans ought to flip over this, yawn. And yeah, just an interesting design, not something you'd think of as like one of his iconic covers, but it's doing something. Mr. Fantastic contorting his face to the point of being almost unrecognizable and evil. And there's a reason for that, which we'll find out. The Return of Doctor Doom. So Reed is in the middle of some tests. Just a really fun ongoing theme in this series is that, you know, Reed and the team to some extent are continually tinkering with, you know, various devices and trying to understand their powers. Reed is trying to film Sue with a special camera while she's invisible to see if he can get some clue as to how her power works exactly. I don't know if this is related to something similar to The Thing, where like trying to undo the powers. I always got the sense that all of the members of the team, except for The Thing, are happy to have their powers since it's something that they can turn off and on at will. Maybe a deeper understanding, or, you know, the essence of science itself, of scientific investigation. And so he found that he is actually able to photograph a subtle difference in the area where Sue is. It's not like a super crisp outline, but it definitely is. My Vibrolight process captured Sue's outline slightly, even though she was invisible. And then they get interrupted with the Fantastic Four signal. There's some business with a door lock that's stuck. It's a nuclear door lock that you have to be careful with, or it'll set off a nuclear explosion. But it's just sort of an excuse to watch the Fantastic Four have a little bit of business before the villain shows up, and give you a little tour of the Baxter Building by way of Reed's stretching arm. Then they go out to see what the fuss is all about. Reed gets surrounded by some admirers and is able to sort of be there and not be there at the same time. Same thing happens to Sue. She disappears, but her invisibility is a liability when she's standing in the middle of the street, because a car doesn't know she's there, and then when she realizes this, she reappears and it swerves to miss her, crashes, gets in trouble, or thinks he's going to get in trouble with this police officer, but the police officer saw the whole thing, so it's all good. And the reason why the Thing set off the Fantastic Four signal, the Fantastic Four flare gun, was to show off these cool models that his girlfriend Alicia made of their rogues gallery of villains, which only a few issues in is a pretty cool rogues gallery. You know, I'd put this crew up against most superheroes rogues gallery, and we're only getting started. But Sue takes issue with Namor being included in that rogues gallery. Reed asks her, sort of reminds her about, something that he feels they have between us. I'm glad you mentioned that, Sue. I've been wanting to talk to you about Submariner. I always thought we had an understanding, Sue. I thought when the time was right that you and I mean, don't say it, Reed, please, not now, not yet. I'm not even sure of my own feelings. Boy, I'm glad I'm not old enough to have all those kind of mushy problems. And at that point, at that very poignant moment, the story stops. And that, dear reader, is as far as Jack Kirby and I got with our story before the unexpected happened. But let us show you just how it all came about. Our scene now changes to the studio of Kirby and Lee on Madison Avenue, where we find Studio of Kirby and Lee. I'm a little shocked to see Jack Kirby's name coming first, just because I know, Stan Lee has final say over, what goes to print, and every other mention, Lee's name comes first. But it warmed my heart to see the Kirby and Lee studios. I like the sound of that. So Jack pitches a villain idea to Stan Lee. Stan feels like it's a little too commonplace, that people have expected, really great supervillains like Doctor Doom. He, is gone, lost in deep space. And we never get a clear look at Kirby or Lee's faces, which is an interesting gimmick. I'm not sure exactly what the purpose is. Maybe to maintain their anonymity so they don't get hounded by Fantastic Four fans when they walk the streets of New York. This drawing of Kirby, I mean, Kirby at his desk, it looks like if we would just move his hand, I feel like we'd see that signature Kirby self-portrait. Like it really looks, same kind of mark making and everything, holding the cigar. And we get some fourth wall breaking that not only is this comic we're reading a story that exists within the world of the comic itself, but Doctor Doom shows up at the door of the authors to first off gross them out by showing them his face and then grossing himself out and then asking them to betray the Fantastic Four to be part of Doom's plan to trick Mr. Fantastic. And so he threatens them. So Stan Lee makes the call. While he gets the call, the thing is lifting a giant dumbbell, which he twists at the mention of Lee and Kirby. When you see them, give them a message from me. Tell them if they don't stop making me look even uglier than I am, I'm liable to go up there and wrap this 2-ton weight around their skinny necks. Simmer down, Thing. Johnny and the Thing are having some fun with Reed's stretchy suit. I really like the drawing of this, of this hat being stretched super far. Really just a fun panel. Reed Richards shows up at the office at Kirby and Lee Studios, although the door says Lee and Kirby, and Mr. Fantastic shows up. He gets gassed by Dr. Doom, and Dr. Doom teleports out of there. And he tells Reed Richards how he survived that deep space exile. And we'll see this returned to again and again throughout the run of the series, this idea of somebody being stranded in the middle of space or subspace or negative space on a hurtling asteroid, and then being rescued by a passing alien ship filled with eggheads who, are an advanced civilization. They have telekinesis, and they can also transfer their minds to different bodies. So even they can escape death in this way. And so Dr. Doom, from staying with them, learned their secrets, and now he does the same thing. He switches places between him and Mr. Fantastic, and we get a fun little fight scene. And then the rest of the Fantastic Four burst in. The Thing lifts Doom in the air, but it's not Doom. It's actually Mr. Fantastic. He only looks like Dr. Doom, and he can't get Ben to trust him. Look into my eyes, listen to my voice, trust your senses, your instinct. Can't you tell? Can't you see what's happened to me? And this is a theme that'll happen again and again in the series, and very famously in This Man, This Monster, except it's the Thing that's been replaced with an imposter in that issue. Johnny's talking about ways he's going to keep Dr. Doom locked up, and then Ben has his own idea, rolling a giant boulder on top of him. But Dr. Doom himself, posing as Reed Richards, suggests his own trick to put him in the dungeon in this super thick, multi-layered glass cage that he can't escape from. But what he doesn't tell the rest of the team is that there's only an hour of oxygen in there. And so he leaves, Reed to his death. Back at the Baxter building, some time has passed, and there's a bunch of tiny zoo animals running around at the same time that there's a headline in the Daily Bulletin that zoo animals missing. They've been stolen from the zoo. They confront Reed about this. Did you steal these? If you're the Joker who stole them from the zoo, then that makes old holier-than-thou Reed as much a lawbreaker as anyone else. And he explains, that he's got a good reason for doing this. It's all part of an experiment, and he's going to return those animals safe and sound as soon as he's done. And he explains his ideas about how if you're smaller, a smaller organism has a more efficient body system. And he says if the dinosaurs were a little bit smaller, if they got too big and their brains didn't get big enough to compensate, and so they grew themselves out of existence, he says. And that if they were, a little bit smaller, they might still be around. And I really love this sort of speculative science fiction idea of highly evolved dinosaur people, exploring the moon. Lots of great little throwaway sci-fi ideas. Maybe even too many throwaway sci-fi ideas, because there's a convolutedness to the plot of this story that feels a little less like, the sort of Marvel comics that they've been making up to this point, and a little more like a 50s or 60s EC story. It kind of, goes into the silly end of things a little bit. But Reed Doom suggests that the same could work for them. If he shrinks each member of the Fantastic Four down, their powers will be greater, their control over their powers will be greater, and then he'll grow them back up to their normal size, and they'll take that increased power upgrade with them into regular life. Again, it's convoluted comic book pseudoscience. It's a little clunky, but you take it in the spirit of fun. For Ben, the best part is that he'll be able to control his transformations from the Thing and back. The Torch is super excited about all of this, and he annoys the Thing. The Thing punches a hole in the wall. They all agree to this power upgrade, and Reed Doom laughs to himself because he's going to shrink them down all the way down, and he's going to leave them that way. Back at Doom's castle, Reed's trying to bust out. He takes the mask off and smashes a hole in the wall, but there's still many layers of glass left, and he just can't bust any further. So he comes up with an idea, kind of cool little idea. He takes one of the oxygen canisters, which is, running low, sticks it in that hole, and then takes another one, throws it at it, and causes an explosion. The oxygen explodes and busts a giant hole in the cage. Now he's escaped. He asks Alicia for help, and Sue happens to be there. She hits him over the head, knocks him down. He starts taking a sculpture of Ben Grimm down with him. Alicia, again, another thing of her having sort of like psychic powers or something. I don't understand. How can that be Dr. Doom? There's an aura of goodness about him, of nobility. The Thing busts in. He's super angry, thinking that Reed as Dr. Doom has, tried to attack Alicia, and he's about to give him a pounding, but something stops him. A nice little 3-panel sequence, that mainly centers around the expression on the Thing's face. And he just can't bring himself to do it, and he doesn't know why. It's your instinct, Ben. I knew it would save me. I must be losing my marbles. And so they get out some kids, which I assume would be the Yancey Street Gang if this were a couple issues later. Some kids are playing in the Fantastic car. They, run away once the Fantastic Four get there. And we get like a closer look at the controls. And there's this Sue Storm, the glamorous invisible girl, pinup page. And as we've seen with, some of the other characters, and it says, in answers to the many requests. And you think, oh, in answers to the many requests, here's a pinup picture of the invisible girl. But no, in answer to many requests, note the details in the control panel of Sue's section of the fabulous Fantastic car. So that's what they think the readership is looking for, a closer look at the controls of the Fantastic car, which I imagine maybe some, home model enthusiasts who want to build their own little toy Fantastic car. Maybe they want to know that detail. It is a cool detail, I got to admit. So Reed Doom is getting ready to shrink Sue down. The real Reed tries to intervene, but Reed Doom trips him, and he says, "Stay back, you meddling fool, back, I say," which is only a comic book villain talks like that. And Ben Grimm is, picks up on that. "Now I know what's been bugging me. It sounds crazy, but Reed somehow doesn't sound like Reed." And so Johnny does, again, some, to me, overly elaborate comic book pseudoscience, which I would more associate with, like a 1950s issue of Superman or something. But Johnny says that there's, some construction men excavating a building foundation on the street below. By controlling my heat, I can warm up the particles in the air here enough to cause a heat mirage, making the dynamite reflection seem to be right in this room. Stand back, Thing, and watch. So he makes a hologram, a heat mirage of dynamite. And when Reed, looking like Dr. Doom, sees this dynamite, he jumps on it. Gotta pull the fuse before Sue and the others are injured. And then Reed Doom, stinker that he is, "Dynamite, I'll save myself by slithering up this vent." And so, the game's over. The Thing pulls them by the legs. Reed and Doom do the reverse body switch. They're back in their own bodies. We get these interesting two panels of the Fantastic Four closing in on Doom. Doom shoots them with a finger blaster, a sub-miniature transistor-powered atomic blast gun. Accidentally, he activates with that blast the shrinking ray, which just happens to be pointed at him, and he shrinks down to nothingness. Nice sequence here. I used it in Fantastic Four Grand Design. Oh, what a way to go. And yet, how fitting that he should meet the fate he had planned for you.
Reed, after today, you'll always be top dog in this combo.
He always was, Ben, but you never admitted it. Surprise follows surprise in our next great issue. More thrilling details about the origin of the FF, a special pinup of Submariner, and Meet the Impossible Man. Reserve your copy today, Stan and Jack. So there you have it, an offbeat, wacky issue. Not quite my cup of tea as much as the previous issues, but still more than enough entertainment for your dollar, and still pretty original. But again, trying some new things, finding their feet. They try even more new things in the next issue to varying degrees of success, and I hope you'll be there with me for it next week. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater, a new comic book from IDW. Ask your comics retailer to reserve your copy today. Monday, September 9th is the final order cutoff for this comic. Comic book stores and comic book retailers need to have their orders into the distributor by the end of that day to let them know how many copies of Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater to send to their store. So if you want a copy, let your retailer know, hopefully before that date, so they'll reserve a copy for you. I'll see you next time for Fantastic Fouriday.